Well, good morning, gamers. It is August 6th, 2024. I'm Adam Blue. This is the Blue Gamer Bluecast morning show, where for the next 30 minutes or so, I will talk about the latest video game news, what I've been getting into gaming, all colored with the context of being a professional for 30 plus years video game enthusiast. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of fun to talk about here. Um, Let's get started. What did I play yesterday since we talked last? Morning, Ultronimus. Good to see you there. Show. There we go. All right. This is Exophase. If you're not familiar with it yet, this is a cool little app or website to like track your gaming progress. You can link up to all your accounts, kind of see where you are across games. Yesterday was just a little. I didn't really play too much. Just a little bit of Metal Slug Awakening. Really, that's I'm having a lot of fun with that. It seems like I might be nearing what the main I guess equivalent of the prior games are within this free to play game. There is kind of the set levels and the stages of the game, and then there's like all the gotcha other extra game. There's fun little game stuff in there I'm doing, but I might finish the game once I finish the main single player story. But yeah, and it's actually fun. I'm surprised that it has multiplayer that works. Like there's PvP and PvE. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's just very interesting how this game turned out. It's like the AAA experience I would want for an old IP. It's just kind of drowning in all this free to play nonsense, even though it doesn't take away from it psychologically takes away from the game, but it doesn't take away from playing the game. Just throwing that out there. This other one, Deathbound. So this is a demo up on Steam. I think the game actually comes out today, but I was actually curious to check this out because what it is, Deathbound is a Souls-like. It's straight up a Souls-like game. It looks pretty cool because it seems to merge fantasy and sci-fi in its world, so the world looks very unique. The gameplay is what's interesting because while it plays like a Souls-like, how the stamina works is you have 4 characters. So as you're doing moves and your stamina lowers, you have to press on the D-pad. The different characters are assigned. You press the button as part of your combo, and then you will morph into this other character, do a combo, and then all of a sudden you're another character. I find that very interesting because it has like the typical like knight style gameplay that you would get out of a Dark Souls game, but it also had this character that did Brazilian capoeira. If you're not familiar with that, it's a fighting style that almost looks like breakdancing. And it was actually fun to like do those moves, spin around, switch to the other character, do some attacks. It was cool just within what I was doing it in the world. I wasn't too immersed into, so I just kind of stopped after some time. It's not bad. In fact, it's very interesting. If you're interested, check out Deathbound. Again, there's a demo on Steam to play it before you buy it. I think, with a game like this having a demo, it's good to be able to try it before you play it. But at the same time, this game does well for a demo because it actually is pretty good. If you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I think sometimes demos can help a game. I think a demo would help this game because it does showcase how cool it is when it kind of seems samey. That's the hard thing. When you're coming out with a game that's just like another Souls-like, it's like, what can you do? Well, at least have a demo. Yeah, so I want to go to something else that's interesting. In Metal Slug Awakening, you actually have multiple characters. You have a party of 3 that you could switch from with the D-pad, just like Deathbound. And in Metal Slug Awakening, as you're shooting and causing debuffs on enemies, once you've hit a max debuff, you want to switch to another character to then start their debuff to quickly reduce the enemy health. So what's very funny is between these 2 games, Metal Slug Awakening and Deathbound demo, they both have this gameplay element of switching characters mid-combat to sort of initiate more damage, endurance, etc. Very funny how that's kind of like both of these games are doing that thing, and it just happens to be at the same time. I was just recently playing Portrait of Ruin, which is like a 2007 Castlevania game, and that had 2 characters you could switch back and forth a lot. And I really think there was something about having multiple characters in a game. Actually reminds me a lot of Dragon's Dogma, maybe more the first one than the second one, but like having a character and leveling them up, upgrading them. Yeah, even the second one. Yeah, I forgot that was actually done pretty easy in that one. But I like the idea of a game where you have multiple characters that you're upgrading and utilizing. And Portals of Ruin kind of reinvigorated that idea. Interesting that Metal Slug Awakening is just built in, Deathbound, and I want to see there's other games that I've been playing. Suicide Squad is kind of like that because you could switch between the four characters. Um, I want to say there was something else I played recently that also had multiple characters. We have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Splintered Fate, which I need to get back to. I can't believe I haven't played it in like a couple weeks or more. Yeah, there's some Portrait of Ruin right there. Too bad I can't get like the time would be actually in the game. It doesn't display here, but in RetroArch I could get the time spent. Okay, I was just reviewing this real quick to see, was there another game I was playing recently that had multiple characters? Probably. Double Dragon, Rise of the Gaiden. Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons. That's another one that had the multiple characters you can switch through, and you could do that mid combo and all that. So, yeah, that's kind of a newer, a less used, but kind of a good idea going forward is having, your typical action game. Like Grand Theft Auto, actually, it did it a little differently, depending on where you were in the story. But the idea that at will you could switch characters, yeah, let's see if they do that more in games. Well, yeah, in terms of what I played yesterday, that was really about it. Not too much. But yeah, let's dive into some news. What are some news topics? Here we go. Warner Brothers Discovery are considering selling a stake in Warner's video game business. Very interesting. Do I have this opened anywhere? Let's I cannot read the article. To read this article for free, register now. Okay, I could, but I'll just keep it on here. Zaslav and Weidenfels are instead looking to offload smaller assets. They are considering offers to sell Polish broadcaster TVN or a stake in Warner's video games business, which holds valuable intellectual property to Harry Potter games, said people familiar with the matter. So they're saying a stake in Warner's video game business. So not necessarily selling like that side of the business. So it's a little different. And that is interesting because I feel like Warner would be fine with games if they just didn't make their missteps, like Suicide Squad versus the Justice League or whatever it's called, Kills the Justice League. Like that's a great game, but that's not a DC Batman comic book game. Like that's where they dropped the ball. It would have been cool if they released the Suicide Squad game as a completely different IP, maybe, and released that. I mean, just kind of like how the Batman Arkham IP was originally originally when they were making a Batman game that ended up being the Shadow of Mordor. I think I learned that here on an episode we did. So, there is a possibility within the Warner Brothers gaming divisions where they could offload something. Hey, this game, this Justice League, whatever they call it, Suicide Squad, Kills the Justice League, plays well, but doesn't work with what a big selling Batman game would do, right? It's like if they came out with Spider-Man 3, Sony did, and instead it was a shooter instead of a Spider-Man sling. You know what I mean? So I think they should have just stayed with basics, just a follow-up Batman game, kind of pushing the technology if they can, kind of tightening up the combat to be more similar to what Spider-Man has done, evolved from the Arkham games, and then the Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League as like a separate game. And, because they have Harry Potter that did really well, I think Warner Brothers has the potential to actually do good. And just, I think it's very strange it went like this, because remember Shadow of Mordor and then that sequel, and that did well, and then Harry Potter and the Batman games. It's like Warner Brothers knows what they're doing. So the fact that they're kind of stumbling right here is probably a symptom of a bigger issue that is actually going on right now that they might not even know about, which I find very interesting. It's you've got the Zaslav guy that came in to kind of help the company make money by shaking things. That might mean selling things, but the video game aspect, they just missed the mark and made a huge mistake, which with the movie stuff, it seems like they're trying in the TV, they're trying to figure that out, and it seems like it's sort of working. But with the video game thing, it's like they don't even know what they have. It reminds me of when Disney first sold off their gaming divisions and then the IP for other third party companies to make. And now, just recently, Disney's like, nah, we're going to go back to doing that in house so we have more control. It's very funny how we see this repeatedly and repeatedly with these bigger corporations that have really good IP. Is they will do something that works, but then they'll try to do something else, and then it doesn't work, and then they don't know what to do, and it's like, just do what works, you know. It's crazy. Warner Brothers, it doesn't make sense because I feel like when it comes to filmmaking, I like Warner Brothers. I think they have there's this sort of set of principles that I feel like it follows their filmmaking, even if something doesn't. Like for instance, that the latest Christopher Nolan, not Oppenheimer, but the one before that, with the time travel and all that, that was made very well. That had prestige filmmaking all over it. But I think since they relied so heavily on Christopher Nolan to just do whatever you want, it wasn't that much of a cohesive story at the end of the day. That wasn't that interesting for me to want to watch again. So, but I mean, look at what they've done with Joker, what they did with like the Flash, even though that's like a crazy, it's like for me, like the Flash movie is how you can kind of go Disney and Marvel with your superhero story without fully going Disney and Marvel, right? So anyway, that's just a long little aside I have there because I think it's so simple for Warner Brothers in their position. Why would they need to sell any stakes in the video game business? They could leverage that. They could leverage that. And I just look at Metal Slug Awakening and how they're doing that. And I know that's like a free-to-play game, but if that's the business they need to get into, like if they're looking for that kind of money, they could make a side game that is DC, that is Justice League, that's like Metal Slug, where you have all these characters and, you know, you just, and that's interesting because Metal Slug didn't change its gameplay to fit a mold. The Rocksteady or Warner Brothers with the Batman Arkham series changed the gameplay to fit a mold. When you're changing gameplay to fit a mold, that's when you might have some problems. So, anyway, let's move on for that. I don't know why I'm so fascinated. I'm so fascinated when I see a company that has so much potential and they don't know what to do with it. All right. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop now releasing in the West 2 weeks earlier digitally for $45. So this is something I'm excited about. I played the original but never beat it. It's a James Gunn made video game. This was either right before or right after he started working on Guardians of the Galaxy. So this has prime Gunn, where by that time in his kind of filmmaking journey, he has really solidified how he can have these very nuanced, interesting, quirky experiences, but speak to a broader audience. Anyway, yeah, that again, going off like that's why Warner Brothers has him to connect the story. Yeah, that's interesting how that works. But what was interesting about this game was how it was kind of a marriage of, you know, Japanese video game sensibilities with like kind of the American or Western, you know, filmmaking story perspective. So interesting to play this again, because then I consider this like an artsy game, not maybe necessarily in any messaging, but just in terms of how it was made, how it was put together. So so I wouldn't buy this physical anyway. I would just buy digital. So it's cool to know that it's coming out. Yes, September 12th. Hopefully by then I would have, but probably not finished at least Outlaws or got enough time in the Gundam Breaker 4. So that's a lot of games. Okay. Moving on. Sony Santa Monica is making its first new IP in over 20 years. Tomorrow is another Kratos. I don't know what that means, but it's funny how they're showing I was just looking these up, the action figures Sony's coming out for some PlayStation properties. They have these God of War figures, which, you know, I like action figures. I wouldn't buy these because the newest God of Wars just didn't, unfortunately, get to me. It reminds me of the Warner Brothers thing I was just talking about, where you take the core gameplay and you change it into something else. It's like, this game would work fine, but you kind of killed the God of War IP, Kratos, because now the next game is not even a third, or usually these games are done in threes. No, no, no. Santa Monica is actually just making a new game, new IP. So, as spotted by a member of Reset Era, developer at Sony Santa Monica mentioned they've been working at the studio looking after the entire character development pipeline on their new IP. In the About section of their LinkedIn profile, a developer supervising character development said they were thrilled to be back at Santa Monica after a brief departure to work at Striking Distance and Unknown Worlds. So, Unknown Worlds, I think under them is Striking Distance. They made that Callisto Protocol. It's been over a year, right? Since Callisto Protocol came out, and everyone was excited about it. Then it came out, and it was like, it's okay. It just looked great. And it's one of those games where sometimes a game really is good, but not that many people liked it. And you could usually tell because it's still in the conversation. Callisto Protocol hasn't been in the conversation for a while. I really do think, just in general, people didn't. Anyway, but the thing is, Callisto Protocol is like a prestige style game where it's third person, minimalist in ways, especially the controls. And so, yeah, bringing that type of developer back to Santa Monica means it looks like they are. I'm just guessing, but they must be making another game that's like a prestige style third person. My whole thing with this is I am disappointed that Sony with Santa Monica was like, okay, let's make a God of War, but let's kind of make it different. And then they made the sequel. The talk about it was like, it's just a whole bunch of fluff in this game. Even people that I know played the first one haven't really been talking about the second one much at all. And it's very interesting. And now people liked the Valhalla DLC that came out later. But I mean, in my opinion, Sony accidentally killed off Kratos in terms of how much people care about him. Why does Horizon get a VR game? When they could be focusing, like, there is some interesting shift that happened where they wanted to. And I don't know how much it's what I'm about to bring up, so I don't take it seriously. But the whole DEI thing is very interesting. Hearing news where companies that had DEI groups or producers in positions, even at Marvel, that they're letting them go. It's almost sad that they've made, just like with their IPs, they make this kind of thing and then they just let it go. Are they really even thinking about what they're doing in the first place? Like with God of War, okay, we're going to bring him to a modern era, take away what made him popular in the first place. And while these games sold well, because just like with a Marvel movie, the marketing budget behind it is so big that of course they're going to get a certain return out of it anyway. But beyond that return, it wasn't enough for people to really care too much about it. I'm very fascinated by that. IP's so new that they don't even have a proper thumbnail for it. That's funny. Yeah, it's so funny how it's like, oh, let's use this image of the toys coming out. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of complaining. I was just complaining about Warner Brothers. I am kind of complaining about Sony. So at the end of the day, there is still this thing where it's just the economy in general, although it stems from high risk actions done by a corporation. But in the end, when the economy changes, they are affected greatly, and it affects the production. So hopefully, yeah, this is just a small little time before things change. Let's see. Did I have something else? There was something else. Let me look at this before I share it, because I'm not too familiar with it. So there's this thing called 5M on GTA 5. It's a multiplayer mod. Okay, I think I'm getting a little more information on this. 5M reportedly to come to the console versions of GTA 5 in October will serve as a test for GTA 6. So that whole multiplayer mod that people are using is interesting. How that's getting folded in, and they're even spending the time to fold it into the consoles, and then it will help test for GTA 6. Is very interesting. Rockstar, using, and I think it makes sense when you have people out there that really care about a property and they make modifications or changes that kind of help prop that up, yeah, you want to make use of that. Um, yeah, there's not too much more I have to say about that. I think it's pretty cool though. Okay. August PlayStation Plus Essential Games are now live, and I always forget which one I have or if I even subscribe anymore. Okay, it's going to be Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, which I have. I remember getting it. It was only a week or two after I got back in 2022 for my 10-day silent meditation retreat. I actually played through and beat it and barely remember it. It wasn't anything interesting, but I think it has to do with it just being a Lego game. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. I know someone in the family who'd be excited about that. And then Ender Lilies, Quietus of the Nights. I've never heard that. That's only PS4. Very interesting. Let's look at this. I am getting what did I even okay, it took me here. Interesting. So $24.99 on Steam, came out in 2021. Metroidvania. So this is an interesting little Metroidvania. Okay, if I have Essentials on PlayStation Plus, I might go ahead and try this out. Let's see. Let's look at the developer. Radiant Silvergun. Okay. Interesting. So I'll have to. That looks interesting. Redemption Raiders. What is this? Simulation Dark Fantasy 3D. Oh, okay. So it's turn-based. That just looked pretty neat. Okay, well, you know what? So I don't forget. I'm gonna add this to my wish list, but I'm gonna be checking it out on PlayStation anyway, since I might have Essentials. Yeah, it's the basic tier. Thank you, Ultronomus. So yeah, I have the basic tier. So that's great. I'm gonna try that out later. I know Ultronomus, you're into these Metroidvanias too, so that might be interesting to check out. And very positive reviews. That's pretty cool. All right. All right, yeah, Lollipop Chainsaw. We saw that. Official Japanese Street Fighter tournament run by Pharma Company punishes players for not sleeping enough. What a sentence. Okay, I'm gonna move on. I don't know how to unpack that. Okay, Pal World developers' next game won't be a huge budget affair, CEO says. It's cool. I'm actually looking forward to what they come up with next, because even though I didn't play Pal World, I kind of don't care about that. I see what it is. It's an amalgamation of very neat video game systems from different games kind of put together. And and I could see you wanting to make a game that just inevitably is smaller than something like Pal World. So good on them. I can't wait to see what their next game is. Fortnite to feature a Fall Guys minigame, it's claimed. So that makes so much sense to me. Look, because Fortnite is becoming a platform, and it has shooting, it has racing, it has other things you can make. In my mind, I even thought the next logical step is to have a sort of platforming obstacle course style thing inside a game. You know, it does a couple things. One thing, it has that the optics of nonviolence. So you're not seeing people running around with guns and shooting it. You can still compete and have a lot of fun. You know, I've even thought, you know, there's so many games I would love to make. And one of my ideas is a game that would be like Super Mario 3D World, you know, and maybe even something like Mario Odyssey, but more camera of 3D World, and having it where it's massive multiplayer, open world. You can just run around and the obstacles and search around for things. Like I feel like that would be so fun doing it with a whole bunch of people. And you could even go up to an obstacle and you can just engage an instance to where everyone else becomes what looks like a ghost, and then you and whoever are then doing that obstacle. That way it doesn't mess with other people that are in that open world doing the obstacle, but you can still feel like you're there with everyone else. Anyway, I'm just giving everyone ideas here, but so when I see this Fortnite Fall Guys thing, that's what you know, that's what I'm feeling. So it's interesting that it's a Fall Guys mini game and not just that they're doing a Fall Guys, because there's this other game called Stumble Guys that's just as popular. In fact, Stumble Guys gets big IP. I think they're doing FNAF stuff as well. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I think it's really cool how Fortnite is this platform. And there's going to be some Gundam stuff coming out later, so it'll be interesting to see what that's all about. All right. Game UI database, that's probably good for game developers. High on Life to get animated series. I played a good chunk of this game, and it wasn't bad, but I think the pacing of marrying the shooter gameplay, puzzle shooter gameplay with story is kind of what got me off the game, because I think that's just one of those things that personally, I don't like too much story getting in the way of my gameplay. Not that this did it a whole lot, but it was enough to where I didn't continue playing it. But if you really like cool stories and games, especially like stuff like Rick and Morty, I think this is for you. It was pretty neat what I tried. Until Dawn movie begins shooting. Very weird. It reminds me of like Until Dawn is pretty much a movie made as a game, and because the gameplay reflects that. And so that means this could just work, same thing with The Last of Us. Like, as much as that is more of a video game because you're controlling a character, it's still very limited in its mechanics in general, just so it could be more story based. That's why it works great as a show. All right, Fortnite is receiving new Dragon Ball Z and X-Men skins, it's claimed. Well, that's cool. I know the kids like that, and I like X-Men, so I mean, I don't know if this is going to show any leaks or any. Oh, yep, there's some Dragon Ball there. Oh, there's some X-Men there. Look at that. And the 90s X-Men, they know what they're doing. So there's Rogue and Gambit, and every time Rogue and Gambit has shown up, I've just not bought them. But the Cyclops, yeah, Ultronimus, yeah, I know, yeah, exactly. Oh, hold on. Ultronimus, thank you for the chat. Dead by Daylight is showing off Castlevania DLC. Okay, let me search that real quick. And again, I have not played Dead by Daylight, but it has some of my favorite IPs. So let's see. Let's look at this. Dead by Daylight's Castlevania DLC news will be revealed on August 6th. Wow. Adding to its impressive list of crossover content, fans are eager for a possible Carmilla skin and new castle map in the upcoming DLC, tapping into the rich Castlevania lore. So I need to do this. I need to play Dead by Daylight more, because it's got Ash, right? Doesn't it? And it's got some other cool stuff. With Castlevania, I'd be curious. Yeah, I need to check that out. Okay, so that's on the list. Thank you, Ultronimus. So we've got Castlevania DLC for Dead by Daylight. I'm going to check out that game. I completely forgot its name. That's on PlayStation Plus. And then one more thing I need to show everyone, because it is today. Volgarther Viking 2 is coming out today. I am going to buy it as soon as it unlocks. 2 hours. Yeah, and I'm going to play it, and I might stream this game. This is just one of those classic hard games that I'm really hard. Like, I never beat the first one, but I just love trying the challenge. So I'm going to be playing this a little later today. So yeah, that's about it for today. Man, I need to get a haircut. I'm going to do it myself. I know I keep saying that, but I got to get it done. Anyway, guys, thanks to everyone that joined and watched. Hopefully you got some cool video game news out of this, or ideas of some games to play a little later. I know I do too, but I got to get to work. So everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. We will talk tomorrow. So I'll see you all.